about white people?
Nothing.
Really?
No.
Are you serious?
Really? Because my mom, I stayed with my grandma until I was 11. And she didn't really talk about white people that much.
But were white people around you?
No. In the schools, stuff like that. You know, like in those types of roles, like teachers, the principal. They were really only white folks I saw. Maybe a bus driver or something. But I would say Chicago taught me about white people. Man, because this is late 70s, early 80s, so it was still places you couldn't go. You know, if you went over to Garfield Park, somebody gonna shout out their car at you, you know, and that type of thing. So the city and other people's houses, they talk about white people, and they had their feelings about them, but never in the home. They was more focused on the other things. They didn't really talk about it. But like I say, my friends, I go to their house, you know, so I got different opinions throughout time. But I would say about my parents, nothing. And my dad wasn't around, so I don't know his opinion about it. But so he ain't talk about it either. By default. But I would say, but the city educated me a lot. But I ain't learning in the house. So, you know, I told her we had a busing thing in the 80s. She was like, y'all was still busing? You say, yeah.
Like, I was stunned.
And they was,
right.
integrate to school. A few blocks from us, it was all white. But they didn't integrate and come to our school.
Oh, never.
They just put some black kids.
Oh, you thought that you didn't think they were gonna come to your school now? Oh, okay. Well, you didn't think they were coming to you.
Because they were all public schools. Once you think about it, in Chicago public schools, if you heard, you heard. So,
they were still integrating the schools when my kids went to school.
Yeah.
Right. They still. Actually, the school systems right now are more segregated today than they were in the 70s.
And I believe that.
Yeah, because
I do believe that.
Yeah, they're taking initiatives now to privatize things that were once public. They'll set up a special thing where they can make a school private, you know, and it's all about, a lot of it is race and it's taxes. Because education is tied to property tax in so many places.
Right.
So it's like, we don't want our tax dollars to go, and you would think it would go to a big pot and all the kids would get the same books. But obviously that's not the case, right? So yeah, it's really about that, you know, it's about, but back to.
But nobody taught you.
Nobody taught
you had to learn on the job.
Yeah. That's my whole life is OJT. So,
on the job training. Okay.
On the job, about everything.
My upbringing was exactly the opposite. There was all kinds of training in my home and household. My parents were civil rights activists, and you know, we had, you know, it was funny the things we were known for, but we had I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania. We had the biggest collection of black literary items in the state of Pennsylvania in our house, in our home, and people would come to get books and magazines, and you know, we had every Jet, every Ebony, every Essence, every, you know. But my parents taught me to find a way to get along with white people, but not at your personal detriment. They should treat you equally. They should respect you, but to find a way. And so my dad.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry, honey. I'm so sorry, but I gotta ask this. Just a sec. Do you think you can get along with white people without without a cost to your personal self? And I'm not trying to be funny. In a country that was built on racism. I mean, and if you look down at our founding documents, can you get along with white people without sacrificing a part of who you are?
I'll say today, yes.
Today, yes?
Because I am incredibly authentic about those relationships, and I don't mind calling a thing a thing. And he and I talked about this recently. I made a decision that I wasn't going to let stuff go no more. So when the thing happened, so I was in a meeting, for example, at work, and somebody called me by the other black woman's name.
Oh, yeah. We all I've been called every black woman name before the S.
So after the meeting was over, I said, just so you know, that's called a microaggression, which has happened. Let me explain it to you. So I had, and there's all white people with me in the room. I'm the black one that, but I was like, I'm going to start calling a thing a thing.
And that is just so you know, in my opinion, a blessing in a conversation for them. But I'm sorry, I got off topic. I apologize. But I just had to ask if you think.
Question because, yeah, I mean, and I feel like, I could be wrong, but when I watched my parents engage the way they did, I didn't see them, giving up a piece of themselves. In fact, when my parents divorced and we literally went from having everything to trying to figure out how to pay the electric bill, because my dad just left. He's out. He was just gone. But it was the white people that my mother worked with, because she was sick and had cancer, who showed up at the door with a check for $30,000.
What?
Because she had lost her medical insurance, and they said, hey, we know this is not much, but here's a little something, and we're going to bring you dinner, and we're going to,
Wow.
Yeah.
And because this is one thing I always talk about when I'm talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Do you think that white people can be kind and do stuff like that, but still participate in a system of white?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Without question.
People get real confused. I was just going to ask you that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
They do.
Well, no, what I was going to say is I disagree. I mean, not disagree. I had a different experience that both my parents were civil rights people. My mother became so angry about the way black people were being treated in America. She's one of those people who fled to Europe and lived in Paris for a long time, then came back, taught at Hampton University. My dad was at Morehouse, went to jail with the king multiple times, so much that they brought his butt back to Texas, and he graduated from Prairie View because he was whatever. But at the same time, because I understand race differently now, as they were fighting for equal rights, I realize now that the pinnacle of success for them was to gain entrance into white society, right? And so as they went up the ladder, we moved from, I left my lab school at Hampton University. I ended up going to a private school. We moved to an all-white neighborhood. My mother would worry about stuff like, our grass cannot be long. We cannot be the black family. We cannot be the black family. We can't be the black family, and our grass is not right. So when you're doing those things, you are doing them under a white gaze and caring about it, right? And so they did an amazing job of making me feel incredible as a black person, but I still felt the need, and still do to a certain extent, to please white people in order to be successful, right? I mean, there is a reason why the door is shut in this conversation right now, right? And so if I'm honest, and so I'm always looking at things from like an outside. So I would love to say that I'm just a free black woman out here doing what I do. And I'm becoming freer. But I was taught, and probably with a lot of wisdom, that there is got to be a little shuck and jive to your boogie woogie oogie.
Yes.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree. Like, I think from the age of 8, we lived in a predominantly white neighborhood, and my mother and father cared very much about how they looked. That lawn was cut every Saturday. That grass was watered on a schedule from 6 to 7, and every 15 minutes my dad would go out and move the sprinkler. Seriously.
Yes.
Yeah. And move the
Oh yeah.
sprinkler.
Oh no, I was moving it. That's what I'm saying. I was moving the
Somebody
sprinkler.
was
Yeah.
moving the sprinkler because that grass had to be green all around, cut, yard, mulch.
in black neighborhoods too.
Yeah, but but my parents always, but you don't trust them. They will always stick together. They will always stick together. And I remember being so hurt. We had this big snowstorm in DC, and nobody was moving. I don't remember what the year was, 1970, whatever. And I was looking out the window in the front, and I saw these people keep going down to this house. We lived in a cul-de-sac, so they were going to the house down the street. And my friend Karen, who was, you know,
Her name was
my
actually
white
Karen?
Karen was a white. I had a white best friend, Karen. I did last. Yes, that was my best friend, who my mother would always refer to. I'm not Karen's mama. You don't come in here acting like Karen. But that's a whole other subject.
Yeah.
But and so Karen called. She said, "Aren't you guys going down to the Smiths?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Oh yeah, everyone's heading down to the Smiths for chili. You know, we're bringing chili and stuff. Are you guys coming?" I said, "Oh, I'll ask my parents." Innocent, right? I'm like 10, 11 years old. So I said, "Mom, everyone, don't you see everyone walking down the street? They're like tiptoeing in the. I mean, it was like 3 feet of snow. It was a big snowstorm." And my mother said, "Oh, we're not invited." And I said, "What do you mean? Everybody's going. Why are we going?" She said, "We were not invited." I said, "But I want to go play, right?" I'm like, "But Mom," she's like, "Understand me. We were not invited, and it's okay, because they down there being white. It's okay." And my parents were not hurt about it, but I was so hurt. My brother and I were so hurt because those were our friends. That's who we played kickball with.
That black wake-up call. I tell people, everybody gets it.
down.
They all get it.
And
Meghan Markle's just getting it.
They
They all get it.
We got it, and my parents were just like, we turn on TV, we're gonna watch the reruns of Dallas or whatever, you know, whatever we were doing. They were calm about it, but I remember being hurt. But my mother always said, she said, work with them. You have to learn how to work with them, Tammy, to be successful, right? But remember, when it comes down to it, don't trust them. They will always stick together.
Can I ask you, just real quick, do you think, I don't think that white people recognize the conversations that we have in our home. So I think
They
that,
don't have to have them.
no, but I think that they talk about black people. I think they think that, like, oh, I was told I can't marry a black guy. But I don't think they realize that black people have conversations about white people, and we're not just like, oh, I know. I really, honestly, as I've done this work for the last 30 years, I really think it's surprising to them that our family was like, I really think that white people start out with the idea that we love them and we like them. I think the last year since George Floyd was murdered has been like, what? I think it's very surprising.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm thankful that, you know, my parents were very, like, they did, like you said, their piece of the dream was to move into these houses, you know, these 4 or 5 bedroom houses in a predominantly white neighborhood. But we also had, you know, my dad's family that we saw 2 or 3 times a week. So we had that split, and even at my grandmother's house, it was always a conversation. I remember my aunts and uncles, my mom and dad, always having conversations about how they were done wrong at work by white folks. Mm-hmm. Someone else got a job that they had bid on. They've done this for 7 years, and so got it who just walked in the door. I had an uncle who actually sued the Federal Trade Commission for discrimination and won. And they had to pay for it because their defense against him was bogus. So they had to pay his full-time government salary and pay for him to go to Howard University to get his master's, because that's what they claimed, and it was proved wrong. So he had a great couple of years going to get his master's and PhD and a full-time salary because. So we talked about it from that perspective. Work discrimination.
That's why our mamas were like, why y'all crying and carrying on about the strong black woman? Because they had seen all this stuff. You think you're the first one that been discriminated against?
My mom was like, I go in there and deal with that every day so y'all can eat around here. And that Betamax that y'all wanted for Christmas.
The Betamax. You didn't go back to the Betamax now.
That Betamax that y'all wanted for Christmas, that's me in there shucking and jiving for that Christmas bonus. So I don't even want to hear it. I don't think she wanted to hear my complaints, because her reality was, I go to work and deal with that BS every day and smile and shuck and jive. And I would call my mother at work and I wonder, why does she have this different voice?
Hello, Mama. Look, Mama.
I was like,
Mama.
Hello. And then, you know, we do something wrong. I'm going to call you back in 5 minutes. Right? She's not going to cut you out from the cubicle.
Yeah.
She's going to go to somebody's office. So there were no cell phones back there. She's going to go find somebody's office who was empty. And she's going to call me. She said, let me tell you something.
Let me tell you one goddamn thing.
Let me tell you what better be done by the time I get home. And you better not call me no more. Don't call me no more.
Everybody's had that conversation.
What happened to? Hi, this is Dee Dee.
But Melanie, that's what makes me, I want to sort of switch up the question for you. What did you teach your children about white people?
Don't trust them. Don't trust them.
Whoa. So the lesson is generational.
It is.
Right.
They,
It hasn't changed.
They
It
mean
persists.
you no good. They will stab you in the back. Be nice to them because they might give you a job one day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I never said that.
You did?
Oh, I have.
Because
Be
it's
nice
true.
because they might give you a job one
Oh,
day.
100%.
No, just be better than them so you can be.
Well,
their
see,
boss
that's
one
what
day.
my mother taught me was to, no, not be better. You have to be 150%.
Work twice as hard to get half as much.
Yep. That was my mother's.
But no, I have to be realistic in knowing my children to know that maybe they won't be the ones that will run the company.
No, be nice to them so you don't get arrested.
Well, that's always. Well,
There's that.
No, but Sophia, that's real talk. I mean, we talk about the talk when the police talk about kids, and you have a son. Like just that talk teaches us something about what we're teaching about. So
you know, my mother had to have the talk with me.
I'm saying the talk with black, because I had two black sons.
My
With
brother,
black men is
I
weird, too.
remember my dad having the talk several times with my brother. One because of, well, it was 2 times. One when we were living here in D.C. and at that time the crime rate in D.C., the crack epidemic, and the carjacking of the Lexus, which my parents happened to have, and they would not allow my brother to drive it. That was what those conversations.
My kids have never driven a luxury car to this day.
Well, my brother was just
Because I have
young
two black
driving,
men.
so you're
No, but I'm
driving
saying
your
to this
parents'
day.
car. Yeah.
I don't trust them because I don't want them being stopped. And that might be
I
crazy.
remember my father teaching my brother about how his presence is intimidating and how to handle it. My brother's 6'1", 6'2". My dad was tall. You look them in the eye. If you can, sit down. Take away that leveling. Don't tower over them. Sit down and talk to them. Put your hands here, calm, or do this. Keep your hands on your knees, lean forward.
What about-
But sit down and talk to them if you can. That was my dad. My brother. Don't
And
talk
facial
back.
hair.
Yeah.
Facial hair. I don't.
Facial hair.
Facial hair was so.
Yeah.
Well, with the Ross boys, it was locks. It was locks
Oh,
and
good.
tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember when Steven wanted to get his ear pierced, and my biggest concern, you know, I really didn't care, but how they were going to view my child, and
Right.
that's what I had to tell him. I'm like, you don't understand, sweetheart, how they're going to view you now, and when they view you differently, they're going to treat you differently,
Or
and
you
that's
never-
just that, right? And your piercing, and I said, in tattoos. You know, but he blew me over. His friend Ollie, whose dad was an attorney. Well, Ollie's dad let him get one. Well, that's Ollie's dad, and they're different. And IQ, we're not doing that, you know. But then the tattoos, and it became popular. Young kids were getting tattoos, and I was like, no, because I already know how they're going to see you. You're already a young black man. He was growing out his dreads then. I said, they're putting you in a box. And I'm not saying you shouldn't express yourself and you shouldn't do these things. I said, but as a mother, that scares me.
Yeah.
Because I know when you're not with me, they don't care that you've been on the honor roll. They don't care that you're going to college. And Miles, well, you've seen Miles. My middle son is about 6 feet. He plays football, muscular and tatted. And I told him, I was like, be careful where you go with your shirt off. Because you know, it's just the weirdest things as a mother of black sons that you know, I have to teach my children differently than my parents taught me. Because one, I'm a girl. Two,
They didn't have that conversation with me.
Right. Oh, well, I had
My
the
parents didn't have that
conversation.
conversation.
I
My
wanted to.
parents had that conversation with me.
Yeah.
I'm not
What was the conversation?
about how to behave around police because I grew up in New York.
Well, that is
I grew
true.
up in New York.
Yeah.
Were you doing the Giuliani era?
No, before that.
Okay, because I just watched that whole Giuliani documentary on CNN.
My brother,
yeah.
my brother lived there in New York, in Brooklyn. My parents lived in Brooklyn in the early 90s. And my brother started driving, and he had a truck. And I remember my dad telling him, put your hands on the wheel. If they pull you over, just be compliant. Don't argue with them. It doesn't matter. I will come get you out of jail, but I just need you to be alive. Don't smart talk. Don't keep your hands on the steering wheel.
No smart talk, no police.
Just if they want to take you to jail, let them take you to jail. Just call me when you get there, but don't argue with them. You know.
I'm trying to, and the police are a whole like another
And
animal.
Brooklyn
But I'm
police,
trying to think about like, you know, what I taught my kids. I never had a direct conversation about how they should feel about white people. I think it was just indirect things where I said, basically I was always like, that's some white people stuff. Like you can't do so. Like wearing pajamas to school was a big thing, right? And I was like, that's some white people stuff. You can't do that. Or there's certain issues. I was like, that's some white people stuff. Like that, and so it wasn't really about white people directly, but it was about the system of white supremacy that allowed them that they could not do what other people did. And I still do that to that day. Like you can't get away with that. But I will tell you, of all the things I question about my parenting, is that I want my kids to feel like the world is theirs and they can accomplish anything and they can do anything they want to do. So I don't want to kill their spirit, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but you can't do that. Wait, no, you can't do that.
So
You can't do that.
I wanted to be a stewardess.
Yes.
I wanted to be a stewardess. First, I wanted to be a stewardess and then a weatherman. The weather person. And my mother told me, with the weather woman, she said, baby, there's no black people on TV.
I want to be Barbara Walters. I told people.
You can't do that.
I want to be Barbara Walters.
Yeah, that's why communications was my major. And then she, when I wanted to be a stewardess, because I wanted to see the world, I wanted to travel. She said, baby, first she said I was too short. Then she said, but baby,
I'm not saying a word.
It does.
It did at one time. Yeah, height.
they had a height.
Yeah.
They had a high.
I think they still.
Remember, they also had it for pilots.
Yeah, you had to be a
And
certain height.
whatever it was.
Well, if you can't reach the pedal, like they don't have pedals, but if you can't reach everything, you got. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not little people of DC. I was short. But she told.
My aunt used to say
But
this to my uncle all the time. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I've heard that, so I know all the words. And what's funny is I'm never offended by it, but what hurt me more is she said, but there's no black stewardesses. You can't be that because there's no black stewardesses.
But that's more about who we are.
That's more about who we are.
But who? I mean,
get that good government job.
I think she was trying.
Yeah, that's about more who we are.
protect
But who? I don't think that my parents, as much as they were civil rights activists like yours and down, they really focused on us, which is what I even try to do in my work, is focus on who we are. And I don't really too much talk about white supremacy a lot, but I don't know. It's just interesting to me to think about who you were taught white people are in the things that we do. I just thought they had a lot of freedom. No, I never. No. Well, I have a lot of Muslim things.
But I think they.
Howard taught you that.
Feels like
But I did hear my grandmother say, which was something so interesting, that she said, she worked for them as an in-house housekeeper, cleaner. Right. She said,
Speaking of that, I learned that they were nasty.
My grandmother said that too.
Yes, I learned that.
Yes.
Okay.
However,
We talked about
my
how to clean.
grandmother said, I watched what they were doing with their children, and they were sending their kids to college. And I said, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to work my butt and do the same for mine. That's what my kids, she said, I did learn that from them.
Okay, but we were sending our kids to college once we could develop schools that we allowed to go to college.
Mine was
But I'm
from
just saying.
Tennessee, and like she didn't have that
But I'm
perspective.
just saying.
They didn't have that perspective.
We were our people created colleges when they wouldn't let us in theirs. I'm just gonna say that as a little plug,
My grandmother,
because they would not let us in college. That's where it came from. Yeah.
She didn't get it from them. She said, I watched what they were doing, and that's where she said, that's what mine were gonna do. And that's where she said she got it from.